It's extremely common to take the wrong path when you have insomnia because there's so much false and misleading information out there from the internet, doctors, therapists, health providers. It can be very confusing and anxiety provoking and frustrating. If you have insomnia, you're trying your best to overcome it and you're not getting results. So in today's video, I want to end that struggle for you and go over the 7 steps to eliminate insomnia forever and why this process is the gold standard for overcoming insomnia. It worked for me over 10 years ago, and since then, I've helped hundreds of my clients get rid of insomnia as well. My name is Dr. Steve Orma. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I specialize in helping people all over the world eliminate insomnia for good and do it without taking any medication or wasting time with things that don't work. So let's just jump right into the first step for overcoming insomnia. Step number 1 is to understand the real cause. Conventional wisdom and most doctors will tell you that insomnia is caused by one of these things: anxiety, stress, depression, PTSD, some kind of medical condition, you're drinking too much caffeine or too much alcohol, you had a heavy meal before you went to sleep, or some kind of stressful life event. This is what they consider causes insomnia. The truth is that none of these cause insomnia. And if you don't know the correct cause, you can't have the correct solution, right? The key to overcoming insomnia is knowing what's actually creating it and then removing or reversing that cause. Let's understand the real cause of insomnia. So yes, there is normally some kind of trigger, and that trigger could be any of the things that we just went through. And that trigger leads to poor sleep. Poor sleep is that you have one or a few nights of difficult sleep, or maybe you don't sleep at all because of one of these triggers. So if you're having a lot of anxiety, if you're having a lot of stress, if you're going through a major life change in your life, yes, that can definitely disturb your sleep. And that leads to some poor nights of sleep. But that is not insomnia. That's just normal life stuff that happens. Sometimes we deal with stress. Sometimes we have changes going on in our life, and that leads to some poor sleep. And that is not a problem. Our bodies are built to be very adaptive and resilient. If you think about, how we evolved in nature for most of our existence, we didn't always sleep great. So having a few poor nights of sleep is just part of life, and it's okay. The problem becomes when the poor sleep here leads to what are called negative sleep thoughts, or NSTs. And I'll go over what those are. I'll give you examples in a little bit, but these are just negative thoughts and worries and concerns about your sleep. Why? Because you had some poor nights of sleep, and then you started worrying about it. Okay, even then, that's not so much of a problem, although that can make it more difficult to sleep. But then what it usually leads to are what are called negative sleep behaviors, or poor sleep behaviors. And these poor sleep behaviors are the things that start actually throwing your sleep off track and start to lead to insomnia. And then over time, that perpetuates. You get more poor sleep, you get more negative thoughts. That leads to you wanting to try to solve the problem even more. So you engage in more behaviors that make the sleep worse. And you're doing these behaviors because you think they're going to help, but they don't. So over time, that leads to more poor sleep. And then this just turns into a cycle. This is called the insomnia cycle. And even when the initial trigger that caused the poor sleep here goes away, right? So you have a period of anxiety or a stressful life event, and then all of a sudden you're through that and all that's gone and you're calm now and everything's fine, but you're still having the poor sleep. You're still having the insomnia because now this pattern has been set in from the reaction to the initial poor sleep. And that is actually what creates insomnia. So insomnia is caused by negative sleep thoughts, or NSTs, and poor sleep behaviors, or NSBs or PSBs, poor sleep behaviors, in response to poor sleep, to initial poor sleep. So to eliminate insomnia, you need to change your negative sleep thoughts and poor sleep behaviors, how you're thinking about sleep and your behavior around your sleep. So let's first address the negative sleep thoughts, and we'll cover the poor sleep behaviors a little bit later. So here's some examples of negative sleep thoughts that commonly happen when someone develops insomnia. I'm dreading bedtime. I must get 8 hours of sleep. I won't be able to function tomorrow if I don't sleep well tonight. I only slept 4 hours last night, so I won't be able to function today, or I'm going to feel really terrible. I've lost my ability to sleep, and I had a bad night of sleep, so I'm going to feel like crap today. Okay, these are all common negative sleep thoughts that people have with insomnia. And they're a common part of insomnia, and they may seem like a normal response to insomnia because you're actually not sleeping that well, but they actually make insomnia worse. And here is what happens. So you start off with these negative sleep thoughts here, and that leads to emotions like anxiety, fear, frustration, stress because you're not sleeping well. Well, all of these different feelings are very stimulating, and they wake you up and they make it harder to sleep. So that causes the trouble sleeping. And because you're having trouble sleeping, it leads back to more negative sleep thoughts here. And then this leads to more emotions that are stimulating, you having trouble sleeping. And this, you can see this then just turns into, this is the cycle that I just described. So the key is that you need to change these negative sleep thoughts over here. That's the starting point. So if you don't change your negative sleep thoughts, then the cycle just continues and can get worse over time because it leads to the behaviors and that cycle that I described earlier. Negative sleep thoughts, you need to shift your beliefs. You need to recognize, challenge, and replace negative sleep thoughts with more accurate, adaptive, positive sleep thoughts called PSTs. And these are adaptive because they're more positive, but they're also realistic. They're things that you can actually believe. What creates negative sleep thoughts usually are the many myths, assumptions, and false beliefs that many people hold about sleep and insomnia. When you start developing insomnia, you have a lot of these assumptions or expectations that are really negative and are false. And those things lead to anxiety and frustration and fear, and they feed into that cycle. So you first need to understand some basic facts about sleep and insomnia. And these facts are based on extensive scientific research on sleep and insomnia. And when you learn that, that starts to calm you because you're actually seeing things more accurately and you realize that things aren't as bad as you think you are. And that helps you calm down. And then that makes it easier for you to be able to sleep. So once you understand these facts about sleep and insomnia and you bust those myths, you'll be able to start shifting those negative sleep thoughts to positive sleep thoughts. And then it's kind of reverses the cycle. So you change the NSTs, which leads to the anxiety, the fear, frustration, stress, to PSTs. And therefore you start feeling more calm, more confident, more certain about the sleep. Less stimulation now because when your thoughts are positive, you're not going to be triggering all those emotions that are stimulating like anxiety and stress, and then that leads to better sleep, which then leads to more positive thoughts. And again, now we reverse that cycle. And if you want to get more details about how you actually go about shifting negative sleep thoughts to positive sleep thoughts, and you're serious about overcoming insomnia, this is what I specialize in. And I put together a free ebook with the 7 steps to eliminate insomnia forever and get your life back without medication or wasting time. And you just comment below the video with ebook, comment ebook, and I will respond back with the link to download that 7-step guide for free. Okay, step number 2 to eliminating insomnia forever is to stop doing things that don't work. What doesn't work? So most of the things that you will find that are recommended for insomnia don't work. These are things that you're going to find on the internet, that your doctor will recommend, that therapists will recommend, health providers. And these include medication and sleeping pills, which we'll actually talk about in more depth in the next step, supplements, sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene just includes a lot of these things like meditation, relaxation, doing exercise, reducing or eliminating your caffeine, getting rid of drinking alcohol, getting sunlight exposure each day. Don't take naps. Don't eat or drink before bed. So it's like all these rules in your lifestyle that you have to change or that you're told to change so you can sleep better at night. Make your sleep environment comfortable. Have a bedtime routine, take a hot or a cold bath or shower before bed, journal, get, all kinds of different gadgets, all kinds of gadgets now they sell for sleep, or eat certain kinds of foods that supposedly will make you feel tired. Okay, none of these things actually will get rid of insomnia. Now, some of these things can be good if you have a normal, healthy pattern of sleep. They can be good. They can help make your sleep stronger. But once you have insomnia and you're in that cycle, these will do nothing, and they will actually make insomnia worse. The reason for that is it leads to more anxiety and frustration because they're not working. You're doing all these things that you're told to do. You think it's going to help, and then it doesn't help. You get more hopeless. You get more worried and uncertain about the sleep, and that feeds more into the cycle. So ask yourself, does this make sense? You're doing all these things. You're eating the right foods. You're eating bananas to help you sleep better. You're getting sunlight exposure. Maybe you're doing some yoga or exercise or meditation. You got rid of all your caffeine and alcohol, and you still have insomnia. You're trying all these different things. You've been trying all these things, but you're still dealing with insomnia. Plus, now you have more frustration, uncertainty, and hopelessness. So what you need to do is stop doing all these things, unwind all these things, and we'll talk about what to replace them with. But you're going to replace them with the other steps in this video. So you're going to unwind and get rid of the things that don't work, and you're going to switch to a few key science-based methods. These are healthy sleep behaviors and positive sleep thoughts. You're going to add those. So you're getting rid of all that huge list of stuff that we went over, and you're just adding a few key behavioral and mental shifts. So you're replacing the negative sleep thoughts and poor sleep behaviors with positive sleep thoughts and healthy sleep behaviors. And that is what will get rid of the insomnia over time. Like my client, Susan, who made these changes, she unwound and got rid of all these different things that she was doing, the sleep hygiene and all these different things. And instead, she just implemented the key steps that I'm highlighting in this video. And that is what caused a dramatic improvement in her sleep. And now she's able to get past the insomnia. Step number 3 to eliminating insomnia is you don't need anything external. So I first want to note here, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a clinical psychologist. So this is not medication or medical advice. If you're currently taking any kind of medication for sleep, you want to first consult with your prescribing physician first before making any changes to your medication. That being said, if you're taking sleeping pills, other medication, or over-the-counter sleep remedies for insomnia, not only will it not eliminate the insomnia, once the insomnia is set in place, it can actually make it worse. Okay, so these are common medications that are prescribed for sleep. So first you have the regular sleep medications, that's like Ambien, Lunesta, Sonata, but a lot of other medications are prescribed for insomnia because they have a sedative effect. So that would be the benzodiazepine. These are the anti-anxiety medications. You have antidepressants like trazodone, very commonly prescribed. Anticonvulsants, even things like Seroquel, which are antipsychotics, because these all have a very strong sedative effect. Then you have all the over-the-counter remedies and then even supplements. And these are commonly taken because this is what's usually recommended when you go to a health provider. If you go to your doctor, almost always they're going to want to prescribe a medication. However, think about this. With all of these sleeping pills, these medications, the over-the-counter remedies, and even supplements, according to the National Institutes of Health in the United States, about 40 million Americans suffer from chronic insomnia. That's 10% of the population suffer from chronic insomnia. That's insomnia that you've had for 3 months or longer. So that's a huge, massive number of people. So worldwide, we're talking hundreds of millions of people are dealing with chronic insomnia. So if medication and supplements actually worked for insomnia, why are so many people still struggling with it? Well, the answer is sleeping pills and other medications don't treat insomnia. They only treat its symptoms. And they interfere with your normal sleep cycle. You can become physically dependent on them, and most people are aware of that. That means that the longer you're taking the medication, the more that you need to take over time because you build up a tolerance to it. You can become psychologically dependent on them. And this includes supplements. This is developing the belief, I need this pill or this supplement or this substance to sleep. And if I don't take it, I'm not going to sleep or I'm not going to sleep well. And I find the psychological dependence even more insidious than the physical dependence. There's also a lot of unpleasant side effects to most of these medications. You can have a foggy brain or headaches or weakness or dizziness, even sexual dysfunction. They undermine self-management because you're kind of giving up the control to the substance or the pill, and they can create feelings of helplessness, guilt, hopelessness, desperation, and lowered self-esteem because no one really wants to take medication, but people end up doing it because they feel like it's their only choice. So this is what I call the medication cycle. When you try coming off medication, if you try coming off medication, this is frequently what happens. You try coming off, so you come off the medication or you start coming off it, your sleep starts to get worse. And you can get actually what's called rebound insomnia. Your sleep actually gets worse because you're pulling away this medication or this substance that was actually sedating you, but wasn't really treating the underlying problem. And when you remove that medication, the underlying problem just comes back stronger. That makes your anxiety go up. That leads back to those negative sleep thoughts. And then that makes you want to go back on the medication because at least, generally it was doing something or seemed like it was doing something. And then you might try to come off the medication again, and that leads you into this cycle, or you might switch medications. So the key to coming off medication is that as you're coming off a medication, you're tapering down safely, again, in consultation with your prescriber. You need to replace it with science-based techniques and methods. Those are the steps in this video. So you're tapering down the medication safely. And at the same time, concurrently, as you're doing that, you're adding these science-based methods. You're changing key behaviors and you're shifting the negative sleep thoughts to positive sleep thoughts. What most people do is they just come off the medication because they don't know what else to do. But then that leads to that rebound insomnia because now you remove the substance and the underlying insomnia just comes back stronger because you're not actually addressing the underlying issue with these science-based methods. So you're replacing the negative sleep thoughts and poor sleep behavior with positive sleep thoughts, healthy sleep behaviors that reset and restore your sleep system. Like a client of mine, Daniel, he no longer is taking Xanax, and this was after just, a few weeks in the program. He came off Xanax, which is a very powerful anti-anxiety medication. And he was also taking an antidepressant, Lexapro, and he was starting to taper off that as well, while he had 96% sleep efficiency, meaning he was sleeping really well most of the time that he was in bed, he was sleeping. Or Beth, another client I had, she had insomnia for 20 years. And for the past 10 years at least, she was taking either Tylenol PM or Ambien nightly. And then after going through these steps, she's taking no meds for months. She's sleeping better and she's off these medications for good. Step number 4 for eliminating insomnia is to create a personalized sleep schedule. Okay, so this is one of those key healthy sleep behaviors that I mentioned. Right now, most likely you have no structure for your sleep. That means your sleep schedule is likely inconsistent, meaning when you're going to bed, when you're getting up, how long you're spending in bed is inconsistent. That's very common with insomnia. And that's because you're engaging in one or more what are called poor sleep behaviors, or PSBs. So these are some poor sleep behaviors. Sleeping in. If you didn't have a good night of sleep, the temptation is, you want to sleep in for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to make up for that lost sleep. It could also include going to bed early to try to get extra sleep on the front end, spending too much time in bed awake. This is really one of the fundamental things that causes insomnia, spending too much time in bed awake. And in particular, if you're lying there and you're anxious, you're frustrated, you're ruminating, you're tossing and turning, and sometimes you're not feeling that. You're just lying there alert, just awake, and you can't sleep. Taking sleeping pills or other substances, we talked about that already, and then trying to sleep, putting in lots of effort around sleep. That's another poor sleep behavior. So even though you're doing all these things to help your sleep, that's why we do these things, because we think they're going to help. They will only hurt it because they feed into that insomnia cycle. Poor sleep behaviors are ultimately the main thing that causes and maintains insomnia over time, because they disrupt your normal sleep pattern, they throw it off track, and they turn your bed into a cue for wakefulness. We'll talk about this cue a little more, what that means in a little bit. So this is kind of a metaphor. What happens with insomnia, you have healthy sleep, everything's going fine, and then you get pulled into that cycle and your sleep gets thrown off track. And then you're on this insomnia track or in this pattern. Your sleep system is in this pattern of insomnia, which is this different track of sleep. So what you need to do instead is create a structure for your sleep. So to create a consistent and healthy structure for your sleep, you need to change 4 key sleep behaviors. Number 1, when you go to bed at night, so your bedtime each night. How long you spend in the bed. This is a really key one because if you're dealing with insomnia, I guarantee you're spending way too much time in bed awake. This is very common, and this is what ultimately creates insomnia and then maintains it over time, is spending too much time in bed awake. The third behavior is when you wake up in the morning. And then number 4, what you do when you're not sleeping. How do you react or respond behaviorally when you're having difficulty falling asleep initially at the beginning of the night, or if you wake up in the middle of the night or early in the morning and you're not going back to sleep, what do you do? How do you respond to that? These are the 4 key behaviors that need to shift to create a structure for your sleep. And this structure has to be personalized to your specific sleep pattern, insomnia, sleep system. Everybody's sort of sleep system is different. And the poor sleep behaviors. It needs to be personalized to these things because everyone requires a different sleep structure to overcome their insomnia and get healthy quality sleep. So this is what makes these behaviors powerful. When you create a structure for your sleep and you change these sleep behaviors, it's that it's personalized to you. How do you create a personalized sleep schedule? You do this by tracking your sleep with a sleep log. Okay, so this is an example sleep log. This is the one that I use in my sleep program. As you're going through the process of these steps, you are tracking your sleep each day. You wake up in the morning, you're recording some key numbers, and then I have calculations built into my sleep log. So it'll actually automatically record or how much time you're spending in bed each night, your average sleep time. This percent here is your sleep efficiency. And then after a week, it automatically gets calculated. So this person, Julie, she was averaging 9 hours in bed, but only sleeping 4.6 hours. So literally almost half the time in bed, she was not sleeping. So that's why her sleep efficiency is so low, 51%. This is very common with insomnia. So, but what this shows is a detailed picture. It's kind of like an MRI for your sleep. And this is how it's personalized because everybody's sleep log is going to look different. This pattern is going to be different depending on the kind of insomnia you have. Are you taking medication? Like she's taking Ambien and melatonin. And then this gives us all this key data, particularly these 3 numbers in this pink area. This is what we use to personalize the sleep schedule and create that structure for the sleep. So one of the first things I do with my clients is I help them determine their individual sleep schedule. Then as their sleep improves, we adjust their sleep schedule every week. So this is important, right? So you create that sleep schedule based on those numbers, and then you adjust your sleep schedule every week because your sleep's going to progress. It's going to change over time because we're changing your behaviors. As you change your sleep behaviors and even your the way you're thinking about your sleep's going to change, right? We're trying to get rid of the insomnia, so it's going to improve over time. And as it changes, you keep adjusting the sleep schedule. When you go to bed, how long you spend in bed, and when you get up in the morning, as you're going through these steps in this process. And once you create a healthy sleep schedule and you apply it consistently and you adjust it weekly, your bed starts to become a cue for sleep or a trigger for sleep, and it will break your insomnia. And it will ultimately break your insomnia, break that pattern of insomnia that we talked about. The result then is a healthy pattern of consistent quality sleep. So that's what you get at the end of the process. Like my client Anne, who changed her sleep structure. She created a sleep structure that was personalized for her and a sleep pattern that fit where her sleep was at the starting point, and then she adjusted it. And then that got her back to her normal sleep pattern. That was the sleep pattern she had before she had the insomnia, where the insomnia was finally gone. Okay, step number 5 to eliminating insomnia is to break the bed-wakefulness association. Right now, your bed and your bedroom are associated with sleeplessness, anxiety, frustration, and fear. It's got a lot of negative associations. Your bed has become kind of like an enemy of sleep instead of an ally. I've even had when they think about going to sleep each night, they dread it because they're struggling with sleep, and their expectation is it's not going to be a good night. So even if you feel exhausted, you haven't slept well in days, weeks, or months, the moment you get into bed, you suddenly become alert and awake and you can't sleep. You've spent so many hours and nights tossing and turning in that bed, getting frustrated and anxious, that your sleep environment in your bed has become a cue for wakefulness. And this is what I mean by a cue. A cue is a trigger or an association that your mind or your brain makes with something else. In this case, it's the bed or your bedroom. It's not the bed or the bedroom that's actually causing your alertness or causing the insomnia. It's the way you are thinking about it in your mind, in your brain. It got associated because when you spend a lot of time in that bed awake, not sleeping over several nights or weeks, really over weeks to get it to be a pattern of insomnia, that association gets triggered. As soon as you get in the bed, your brain remembers, oh, in this bed, sometimes we don't sleep. And then it actually will start waking you up. So this is how our brain and mind works. We associate different things if it's repeated over time. Like if you go to a movie theater, there's that smell of buttered popcorn that gets associated with the movie theater, that when you smell that smell, you instantly will think of a movie theater. Or you might have associations from growing up of certain smells, based on being exposed to that environment with those smells many times. It's just you immediately think of that environment, or it takes you back. This happens with music as well. Okay, so this is what happens with insomnia, or one thing that happens is we make these associations with wakefulness and the bed. So good sleepers, or this is just sleepers who don't have insomnia, the bed is a strong cue for sleep. They don't even think about sleep. And this is probably true for many of you, that before you had the insomnia, you weren't thinking about sleep. You weren't worried about sleep. You didn't think about it. You just got into bed at night, turned off the light, and you went to sleep. You didn't worry about it. And therefore, the bed was a strong cue for sleep. When you have insomnia and you're not sleeping well, the bed becomes a strong cue for wakefulness in the way that I just described. So we need to reverse this pattern. You need to reverse that pattern by making the bed a cue for sleep again. So when your head hits the pillow, you quickly fall into a deep and satisfying slumber instead of becoming alert. How do you make your bed a cue for sleep? The key is you need to maximize the time you spend in bed sleeping and minimize the time awake. Okay. Now that may sound, well, of course, right? You want to have more time that you're sleeping and less time that you're awake. How do you do that is you need to create that personalized sleep schedule, because one key part of that personalized sleep schedule is the amount of time that you're giving yourself to sleep in the bed. So for example, let's say you're giving yourself 8 hours, you're spending 8 hours in the bed a night to try to get the sleep that you need, but you're only sleeping 4 hours of that 8 hours. Okay, this is very common with insomnia. So that's a 50% time in bed that you're sleeping, and 50% of the time you're not. So half the time you're in bed for those 8 hours, that's 4 hours you are not sleeping. Okay, that is too much time in bed to be awake. And that is the thing that ultimately creates the insomnia and maintains it. So just by shrinking down the amount of time that you're spending in the bed, not drastically, you're giving yourself plenty of time to sleep based on how you've been sleeping. That will increase what's called your sleep efficiency, that percentage of time that you're sleeping in the bed. Without even increasing how long you're sleeping, your sleep efficiency will go up. Okay, that's how you start now making the bed a cue for sleep, because now you're spending more time in the bed sleeping and less time being awake. The second thing that you need to do is get out of the bed if you don't fall asleep or fall back to sleep. If you wake up in the middle of the night or early in the morning and you're having difficulty falling back asleep, you generally don't want to stay in the bed for longer than around 25, 30 minutes. Now, this is a very counterintuitive skill. There's a lot of nuances and detail to it that I can't go into the video here in great detail, but this is a key because what this does is prevent you from spending too much time in the bed awake. It starts to weaken that association with wakefulness and the bed and starts to minimize the time that you're awake in the bed. So both of these things are really key to breaking that pattern of insomnia and wakefulness and making your bed again a cue for sleep. Why should you get out of the bed? Well, there's several reasons because this is a very counterintuitive skill. Number one, it minimizes the time that you're awake in bed. As I was saying, it starts to weaken the association between the bed and wakefulness. It breaks you out of that wakefulness state faster. This is counterintuitive. You're in the bed and you're awake and you're alert and you have that what's called hyperarousal feeling, which is very common with insomnia. And, the tendency is, well, let me just stay in bed a little longer. But if you get out of the bed, you'll actually break out of that state faster. And it also takes your mind off of sleep and time, which is important. Okay, as I said, this is a very counterintuitive skill. There's a lot of nuances to it, but these two things, going back here, creating a personalized sleep schedule and getting out of the bed after a period of time when you're not sleeping, are key to breaking that pattern. If you're serious about eliminating insomnia for good, I put together a free ebook with the 7 steps to eliminate insomnia forever and get your life back without medication or wasting time. Comment below with ebook and I'll respond back with the link to download it for free. Step number 6 to eliminating insomnia is to build sleep confidence. So how do you build sleep confidence? Well, first of all, what is sleep confidence? I mean, what that is you're confident in your own body's ability to sleep. So this is where you were at before you had the insomnia. You generally didn't think much about sleep. When you went to bed, and there was an unthought about confidence, an assumption, I'm going to sleep fine. There was just this trust that you were going to sleep. What happens with insomnia is you start to doubt your ability to sleep. You think you may have lost your ability to sleep, and you start to lose your confidence in your own ability to sleep. So that's what I mean by sleep confidence. And to overcome insomnia, you need to start building back that confidence and trust. So how do you do that? Well, as you implement the previous steps, those behavior shifts that I talked about, the shifting of the negative sleep thoughts to positive sleep thoughts, the creating the structure for your sleep, as you start to make these changes over time, and your sleep's going to start to improve. And as your sleep improves, you're going to start falling asleep faster. You're going to be awake less time in the bed and for less often. Your sleep efficiency is going to start to increase. Again, that's the amount of time that you're actually sleeping in the bed. Your average sleep time is going to increase. So if your average sleep time now is 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours, you're going to start seeing that go up. Okay, now, how do you know all these things? Because you're recording this in a sleep log, right? We talked about that earlier. That's one of those key things, is because you're recording this and you're keeping that data and those key numbers, you can see over time with your own eyes, week by week, how your sleep is changing and progressing, and that these things are actually happening, that your sleep is actually improving. And then you're also going to have less nights of insomnia. And if you are taking medication and you started tapering off medication, you're also seeing that while you're coming off the medication, your sleep is improving. And you see that there's no correlation between the medication and your ability to sleep. And that starts to increase your trust. Because when you're seeing these things with your own eyes, you're seeing your sleep improve, you're seeing that you're progressing as you're coming off medication or as you're making these changes, you're going to start to trust your ability to sleep more and more because you're seeing the actual data, because you're seeing the actual evidence and reality. And that leads to better sleep. And when you have better sleep, you start to have more positive thoughts about the sleep. Leads to positive sleep thoughts. Without you even trying to think more positively, your thoughts become more positive. That leads to healthier sleep behaviors because you've implemented these key shifts, these behavioral shifts that we've talked about. And then over time, that improves the sleep even more, which leads to more positive thinking and trust and confidence in your sleep. Maintaining those healthy sleep behaviors, and over time, this creates and turns around the cycle until the insomnia is eliminated. So what we're doing really with this process is we're reversing the insomnia cycle that I talked about at the beginning, and we're turning it into a positive cycle of thoughts and behaviors with your sleep that ultimately eliminates the insomnia. Like my client Alina, who went through these steps and was able to, get past her insomnia and stop having to keep a sleep log and just get back to her normal pattern of sleep. Step number 7 to eliminating insomnia is to keep insomnia away for good. So to prevent insomnia from ever coming back, because once you go through these steps and you get past the insomnia and you get your regular healthy pattern of sleep back, you don't want to have it come back. You don't want to have to, keep dealing with this every year or every couple of years whenever you happen to have a stressor or some poor sleep. You want to be able to prevent insomnia from coming back. Like I overcame insomnia 10 years ago, and I have not had a relapse since because I learned how to prevent it from coming back. This is called relapse prevention. Number 1, what you need to do is maintain healthy sleep habits. And those things are really making getting good sleep a priority. Just like anything with your health, whether it's diet or it's exercise or it's managing stress, you need to make those things a priority to be able to have it. And if you want to have healthy teeth, then you need to make that a priority by brushing your teeth every day or flossing and going to the dentist at least once a year. You need to, that has to be important enough to you where you're putting some investment and thought into, making that thing a healthy part of your life. This is the same with sleep. And once you're past insomnia, it doesn't take a lot to maintain good sleep. You just need to make that a priority and be mindful about it. So keeping a consistent sleep schedule. That means when you go to bed at night, when you wake up, keeping that consistent is, once you have a normal sleep pattern. Now, once you're past insomnia, you don't have to be rigid or doesn't have to be this perfect structure for your sleep. It just needs to be generally consistent within a certain range that you're going to sleep and waking up, and that you're respecting your sleep and that you're giving yourself enough time to sleep each night and enough opportunity to sleep each night to get the hours that you need. You also do want to make your bed and bedroom comfortable and inviting. Now, I mentioned this at the beginning that this is a sleep hygiene thing that people will do to try to overcome insomnia, and it doesn't work once you have insomnia. But once you passed insomnia and you want to prevent it from coming back and maintain healthy sleep, yes, having a comfortable bed and bedroom and comfortable sheets and a quiet environment definitely will help you maintain good sleep over time. The second thing that you need to do to prevent insomnia from coming back is to not start or restart any of those disruptive poor sleep behaviors that I talked about earlier. So this is things like taking a sleeping pill, over-the-counter remedies, really any substance, because it has all those negative things that I talked about that lead into that cycle. Taking long naps during the day, this can undermine what's called your sleep pressure and make it more difficult to sleep at night. Sleeping in to make up for the lost sleep. Going to bed earlier the next night after you have a poor night of sleep to try to, get some extra sleep on the front end. Worrying about your sleep, starting to get pulled into those negative sleep thoughts, and spending too much time in bed awake. This is probably the number one key thing to avoid doing to prevent insomnia from coming back. So let's just quickly review the 7 steps we went over today, the things you need to do to eliminate insomnia forever. Number 1, understand the real cause, that it's caused by poor sleep behaviors and negative sleep thoughts. Number 2, stop doing the things that don't work. Those are all those things, the list of things I showed at the beginning that are usually recommended. You want to stop doing those things and just replace them with the steps in this video. Number 3, you don't need anything external. Number 4, create a personalized sleep schedule. Number 5, break the bed-wakefulness association, break that cue. Number 6, build sleep confidence. And number 7, keep insomnia away for good by engaging in those 2 things that will prevent it from coming back. These 7 steps will eliminate your insomnia, will squash sleep anxiety, and establish healthy, quality sleep for life. So don't forget, if you're serious about eliminating insomnia for good, I put together a free ebook with the 7 steps to eliminate insomnia forever and get your life back without medication or wasting time. Comment below with ebook and I'll respond back with the link to download it for free. Or you can go to the link in the description below and download it for free right now. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time.